So last time we wrote a test to create a space, start the server, and then pipe events. Where are the events? Pipe events into the server. Did the events not save? This shouldn't pass. The mix test exr events should say, yeah, events are undefined. That's strange. Is this saved? Usual. Okay, well, let's just create the events. So events equal, and I think I have the XR events, and let's say that somebody entered. Member entered, and then let's say that they created a grid floor. Take that away and run the test again. No failures, and we are console logging the inside the server. And our test can verify that maybe it's saving it. So if anything in the gen server is transient, so we probably want to be able to log it to persistence. So we can create a table for that. So let's see, what should we do? Go to the priv folder to look at migrations. So we have spaces, entities. So one of the things we'd like to have is events. So how do we create? Let's run the generator. So I think it's mix Phoenix. I think maybe we can run HTML generate, and I forgot how to do this. Let's look up the Phoenix generator. You can also create context. Context space. So I think it's still spaces is the context. Okay, so mix Phoenix generate gen context. Spaces is the context, and event is the model or the schema. So we have an event, and what do we have in there? So we have ID, inserted it, updated it. Those will come. Those will come out of the box. We want maybe the space ID, yes, space ID, which is the references space. And then we have, so they're all bound to that aggregate ID. It's all about a space. Then you have the event type. So I'll just say type, which is a string, and then you also have the order. So we call that the sequence, and that can be a large number. What are the types? Postgres, large integer, small int, integer, big int. Probably integer is even big enough. Start with that. Integer. Integer has 2 billion count. Okay. What else? Then you've got the payload. You've got the type. You've got the payload. And this can be a map. Do we have any others that are a map? Spaces. Yeah, that's a map. Yep, references. I think that's it. Oops, what happened? Expected the plural argument space reference it to be all lowercase using snake case convention. References. Is it supposed to be references spaces? Maybe look for an example. References. Elixir ecto migration references. Are Phoenix generator references. User ID references. Okay, I think it just needs to be spaces. Nope. Expected the plural argument. User ID references users. Oh, I need an events up here. Would you like to proceed? Yes. Okay, injecting into there. Okay, so you created event, primary key, auto generate true, binary ID, payloads map, sequence and integer, default 0, null, false. This one can be default, this, null, it's false. Type, string, yeah, null, it's false. And this is binary ID, and null, it's false. Very good. And there's our migration. What was that? it's the migration, creates a table, ID, type, string. Oh, I think the null false doesn't go here. So on delete of a space, nothing, should I get nothing now? Or on delete, just delete all. Okay, so that creates our table. So you've got your payload sequence. So mix ecto migrate. Okay. Oh yes, what were the additions to injecting into spaces? This is the context, so I'm going to put some things at the bottom where we have here change event, delete event, update event, create event. Alright, so we won't use any of these except create event because they're immutable. Get event, we won't list events. Okay, so the only way we'll list events is list events for a particular space ID. List events. Give me space ID. And then this will be, let's look for an example. Let's see, we do that for components, right? List components. For entity. Yeah, that's kind of what we want. And we also want an order. Order. So from E in event, where the this equals that, order by the event sequence, and then And then we go, oh. So and then get a single event. I can't imagine we would ever want to do that. But it's there. And then create an event. Okay, that's there. Now what? Okay, so now probably want to be able to place this event in here, and our test should verify that there are some events. So we have our event test. So let's make sure we run this for the backend as well. Mix ecto migrate and say that mix env equals test. Okay, so backend is migrated. And so we want to check the number of events, so we can use spaces. List events and give it the space ID and length would equal 2. Do mix test. Okay. Now, got a failing test, so when we process this event, what we could do in the cast, so he goes to events. So we got an event, and then we push it there. Let's see, can this thing stick it in there? So we could do spaces API, the XR spaces event, or create event. It requires some attributes, and so this create event just takes anything, any kind of attributes. Whereas the events we're getting now are like grid created and this and that. So that's really just the payload portion. So we want to say that the base ID is dot, what's in this state? Don't even have the ID of the space, right? Let's see, when we init this and this, then we have the slug. We don't have the space ID. So we might need the space ID. Imagine it being here. And what else could we put there? We could put type, the event underscore type. Because when you have something like event equals the XR event, let's say member entered. So E has that. So E, E, IO inspect E. And I think you do struct true, false. You get this, struct. So you could say E struct and put that to atom to string. Is there a toString function? That. So that becomes the type. So I could say but it would be nice to have a serializer to take that into a polymorphic type. So when you get back an event, if you list the events, anyway, space ID type is event struct to, or just do a toString. And then it needs a sequence. Space ID type sequence payload. Sequence and a payload. Sequence payload can be event. Convert this to a map. Do map from struct, get that. Now this part here is not going to work because we don't have the space ID. So we need to assign it. So when you start the server, give the slug. I think we should start the server with the space. And we get OK space. Then the tuple. We will get in the OK space. And we'll get space and space. State space dot ID. Let's see. The tuple will be space dot slug. So this is only affected by space supervisor, where we're given the start space for the slug, so we can do the xr dot spaces get space by the slug. And what does this return? Get by, which I think just gives you back the space. We'll give the space. So then we'll just replace anything that was using start space, which is fine. You just start space with the slug still. Start space supervisor, or you can make it either or. Start space with the slug, or start space with a space. If this is the xr space is space, you don't need this, just send in the space. Probably have to put this up front because this is going to match more specifically. And now in space controller, if you have the space, then just pass the space. Same with the events test. If you want to process an event, sure, it goes down here. Then in our handle cast for the event, we should have state space ID. Alright. Let's try this mix test. Failures. Send events to a destination that's still failed. Update event is undefined for, oh, these are new tests that were created on our behalf. Yeah, we don't want these. Get event Never need it. List events. Event fixture. Okay, we probably won't use this to create a fixture. Let's just kill this thing. Two spaces test. Yeah. List events. Just kill this whole section. I'm going to test it my way, which is events test. Right, one failure. Okay. So what happened here? I think we needed to wait a little longer before testing. Whoops. Process.sleep for 1 second. Right. So what is happening here? We're doing process event, and did we get there? Let's see. Got event. So if we go into the space server, we're calling create event, which is doing repo insert. Event change set. Okay, let's take a look at the change set. IO inspect with the label event change set. Okay, so we got that far. Action is nothing. Changes, payload, bunch of stuff. Type. And valid true. Where's the sequence? There's no sequence. Cast sequence. This maybe because there's no change. The default is 0 anyway. Let's just take that off and take this off. Okay, oh, we don't have our space ID. Space ID. Space ID is required. Now it's true. So now you've got 2 records associated underneath there. Event test list. So how short can we make this? How about 100 milliseconds, 1/10 of a second? That's true. Can we do 100th of a second? 10 milliseconds. Yeah, that's true. Can we do 5? Nope. We need 10 milliseconds. Alright, so we got something saved into there. I would say we can improve it by batching it and also validating it. Like, these aren't really correct messages, but we can stop here.